Years ago, I was living in a relatively nice and quiet duplex and worked as a contractor for a small company. It was the winter of 2016, and while the area I lived in was lonely, I always enjoyed what I was grateful for in life. I won't name the town I was in, but figure the Ocala type area. Those who have been around there will probably know what I'm talking about when I say rural. Grasslands, rolling hills, and scattered forms of civilization amongst roads. While it got lonely at times, it wasn't always like that. I lived with my miniature dachshund Sadie, big bark, small bite, and was the most precious thing in the world. She was my comfort dog and would always be there for me when I was feeling down. One day, I had just got back from work and started up the stove to heat up some food. Midway through my cooking, I hear Sadie begin to bark at my bedroom door for some reason. Completely oblivious, I just assumed it was her being bored and focused on dinner. However, she still continued to bark, even after I told her to stop. Assuming she just wanted to go into my room to play with her toy, I open my bedroom door and she basically flies in and begins to bark under my bed. My heart sank into the pit of my stomach as it was clear she was chasing something. At this point, she's going absolutely nuts, barking at something under my bed while trying to get under. Assuming it was probably a lizard or a roach, I grab her and put her out in the kitchen where she thankfully quieted down. My duplex is located right next to a wooded area, so it wasn't uncommon for small, unwanted critters to scurry around. No matter how many times the landlord called in the exterminator, the problem always persisted. After I ate, I put my plate in the dishwasher, got ready for bed, and went to sleep for about an hour before waking up to Sadie barking. This somewhat bothered me, as I had to work early and I couldn't sleep with her barking. As I sat bolt upright, trying to grab her, she then jumps off my bed and begins to bark under the bed again. Now I felt that she was trying to tell me something, and so I get up and look under my bed with my flashlight. Laying under my bed was the face of a man smiling at me with these abnormally large eyes. He was clearly older than me, I would estimate 50s, but I didn't see all of his facial features. He puts his finger to his lips and makes a shushing sound. That's when I scream my head off and yell at the person hiding under my bed to get out of the house. When I didn't hear a response or see him come out, I ran to the bathroom and locked the door behind me. For those wondering, yes, I took Sadie with me. The reason why I didn't go out the front door was because I had already locked it and my key was on the other side of the bed along with my phone. Within a minute, I could hear his heavy footsteps approach the bathroom door, followed by a light tap. He then proceeds to mess with the lock on the bathroom door, trying to open it with God knows what. Keep in mind that I haven't fully seen this guy, so I didn't know what he had on him. After some time of him trying to pick the lock, he says in a slow, creepy voice, "I know you're in there. You know I could break this door down in 2 seconds, right, ma'am?" That was when I realized that this person was dangerous and that he wasn't going to give up that easy. The only thing I could do was to jump out the small glass window and out onto the street. Then, as if things couldn't get any worse, the window wouldn't move up due to the ice surrounding it. It was frozen shut. Not knowing what else to do, I go into the shower and unscrew the shower head and use it to smash open the window. I go through first and trample onto the snow with my shoulders bleeding from the broken glass. I carefully grab Sadie, making sure she didn't get hurt, and from there we go over to the neighbor's house and call the police. The neighbors were hesitant before saying yes, but wanted to stay out of it as they didn't want to get involved. The police had come sooner than expected and went into the house and came out with the guy. However, he didn't try to get away. He kinda just went with it, accepting his defeat. After he was detained, one of the officers had come to me and told me something disturbing. The minute they went into my room, everything was wiped out. My bed, furniture, TV, and computer were all destroyed and ruined. Turns out, he had also managed to get in the bathroom by breaking down the door. The bathroom has one of those strong metal doors, so for him to break it down just shows how strong he was. The cops had given me some criticism about how I went about reporting this wrong and that I shouldn't have locked myself in the bathroom. At the time, I felt that he was being insensitive or blaming me for my wrongdoing. However, then I remembered that these were police and probably deal with situations like these every day. If I hadn't thought of the idea to break the window, God only knows what would have happened to me. Hurt, kidnapped, or worse. I haven't heard of the man since, and I had since moved out of that area. Sadie had unfortunately passed away in late 2018 due to a cancer tumor that I had caught during its late stage. While she may not be with me now, her soul still remains, and I thank her for alerting me about the man. I love you, Sadie. I've always loved staying home alone. I thought of it as a sense of freedom and independence. This was especially true when I was younger, when my parents would always go out and run errands or at work. This happened in the late 80s when I was a 13-year-old boy. My family and I had lived in a small town in West Virginia outside of Charleston. It was a nice town. The people were nice, and you wouldn't have any problems with punk-ass kids throwing parties and stuff like that. Basically, if quiet was a town, this would be it. While I enjoyed the peace and calmness of it, that would all change in just one evening. If I'm not mistaken, it was winter break, and I had been home as a usual 13-year-old would. My parents were out shopping, as this was around Christmas, so they did all of the holiday shopping they could. They were the types of people who went out shopping for the best deals and got their kid whatever they wanted. I'll admit, I enjoyed that, but they were also strict on certain stuff. Anyway, I was in my room watching The Terminator, just enjoying myself when I hear a knock at my front door. This was strange, as we almost never hear any knocks unless it was the mailman. However, I knew that it couldn't have been him, as he had came by just the other day. Assuming it had to be my parents returning from their errands, I opened the door and was greeted to not my parents, but some man. He was tall, maybe 6'6", and wore a long black trench coat with a hat and some glasses. He introduced himself as Mr. Vasquez and told me he was new to the area and had just moved in down the street. I wasn't sure what to say other than it was nice to meet you, and so I did just that. Then I had asked him what his first name was and why he was at my house. There was a long pause before he softly chuckled and said that he was here to give my parents something. That's when he pulls out an envelope from his coat and hands it to me. I take a closer look and see that there was nothing written on it, nor had it been stamped or anything to tell where it may have come from. I then ask him what was inside and how he knew my parents. However, he disregarded my question and patted me on the head and told me to have a nice day. I then see him go on his way into the snow and disappear down the street. I may have been 13, but I was definitely not stupid, and there was something about him that just felt off. I wasn't sure if it was the way he was avoiding my questions or his delivery, but I just couldn't put my finger on it. Not wanting to go into it and too tired to care, I leave the envelope on the kitchen counter and waited for my parents to get home. That being said, I finished my movie and remember going downstairs to play with some toys when I see my parents' car pull in. For some reason, I felt a sense of relief as I figured they would finally clear up the envelope situation. When they came inside, I told them about the man who had come and said there was mail for them. They then had these confused looks on their faces and began to ask me about the man. I couldn't really remember any features other than that he was tall and wore a hat. I felt stupid in the moment for not thinking twice about my suspicions. My dad grabs the letter opener and opens the envelope where he pulls out a picture. In this picture were two kids who looked to be in their mid-teen years. One of them was a boy and the other a girl, both of them looking distressed and frightened by something. They appeared like they had been kidnapped by whoever took the photo. With my dad being friends with a cop, he was able to identify the photo as coming from a Polaroid, but wasn't able to identify who those teens were. The town sheriff's office would do a whole investigation on finding out who the people in that photo were and the man I had seen. One thing they did know was that the man I had seen was almost certainly linked to the kidnappings. This investigation went on for a year, with the only lead being an empty wallet found by the local library. Police believe this was connected to the case somehow. Other than that, I haven't heard any updates since. While the investigation was never solved, I did have several questions about it. Why did this man target my house? Why did he not want to reveal his identity? And what would I have done had he decided to do something to me too? Would he have taken me too or do something entirely worse? Not a day goes by where this doesn't haunt me, and I still look for updates till this day. There has got to be something we can do to prevent this stuff from happening. This happened last year during the winter when I was 38. I lived with my wife in an apartment in New York. Not the city, just the state, and it was pretty convenient for us. Anyway, this was during the month of December, and something happened that month that I can't quite fully comprehend. Every winter, my wife and I go up to my parents' house upstate. They lived up in the mountains and owned a barn where they raised livestock, mostly cattle and sheep. We went up there, and our first night there, I had decided to go out hunting with their dog Charlie. These mountains were home to many foxes and deer, which meant game. It was around 4 p.m., and Charlie and I head into the woods to try and spot a deer. It only took me about a half hour when I saw a huge buck by the tree line and I took that chance to shoot. However, as I was about to take the shot, I noticed something else a little deeper into the woods. It looked like a small structure of some kind. This caught my attention and my focus was now on whatever I was seeing. The buck had run off and I told Charlie to follow as we approached this huge metal object. As I got closer, I came to the realization that it was a station wagon. It was still in pretty decent condition and looked as if it had been there for, at most, a week or two. Inside were several boxes of food and medicine. Why in the world would someone leave a station wagon in the middle of the woods? My first thought was to open the car door, and when I did, the door full-on broke off its hinges. That's when I saw another box underneath the driver's seat, which had been sealed for some reason. I take out the box and use my knife to cut through the seal, and that's when I felt sick to my stomach. I already saw what was inside, and I didn't even want to open the box completely to see any more. Inside were several photos and hard drives of illegal activity. It was absolutely disgusting, and I threw the box back in while almost throwing up. When I got back to the house, we called the authorities to come and remove the contents from the car. Till this day, we still don't know who was associated with that station wagon or who took the pictures. Several weeks later, my parents had called and told me that the car had been on fire and had burned several acres of land. This incident is one that will forever be burned into the back of my mind, and I'm not sure if I want to know the intentions of whoever was responsible.